Welcome all. Today I am going to discuss the topic related to programming in C. The topic is break and continue statement. Let us now discuss about break and continue statement. So in C, we'll be using break and continue statements in looping statements as well as wherever is necessary. So, what is a break statement? Let us discuss. When a break statement is used inside a loop, then what happens is program execution skips the rest of the code that is being written inside that particular loop. It breaks out simply out of the loop and the rest of the iterations are being ignored. That is the necessity or importance of break statement. Next, what is continuous statement? So in continuous statement, what happens is whenever we are writing this statement inside a loop, the program execution skips the rest of the block of code and continues with the next iteration. So whenever we are writing number of statements in loops, then for our necessity, if we want to go out of the block, then we will be using break statement. If at all we want to go to the next instructions that are being defined in the loop by skipping the part of the loop, then we'll be going with continuous statement. Now let us discuss the variation related to break and continue with the help of a flowchart so that it is easily identified by you and also easily understood by all. Here comes flowchart on break statement. So break statement flow diagram is represented in loops in this way. Here what's happening is whenever we are going with loop, we need to go with the condition. A condition can be true or false. If the condition is true, then what happens is the instructions that are being defined within the body of the loop are executed. This happens until the loop condition is false. So whenever the condition is false, what happens is we'll be going out of the loop. But if at all we are representing within the block of code inside the loop some break statement, then even though the condition is true, after that the statements which we are executing is represented with break statement, then automatically what the compiler does is it breaks simply the number of statements that are defined within the block of looping and it go to the next statement that are represented within the program. That is the statements that are indicated after the loop. Those are executed by the compiler. This is the main important statement that you need to understand. Here again I am recollecting whatever I said now that to have clear information related to looping. So looping, whenever we are using under looping a break statement, then within the body of the loop we will be representing statements. If at all we are representing break statement in the loop code block, then first what happens is compiler will check the condition expression that is being written within the loop. If it is true, then it goes into the block of the loop so that the code is executed. If at all within the set of statements the break statement is identified, automatically the break statement will make the program execution stop till that statement and it will be coming out of the loop. That is represented after soon after we are representing the statements outside the looping statement. Those statements will be executed. If at all the loop condition expression is false, then automatically the compiler will take all the statements that are being defined after the block of loop. So that is why break statement is used in this context. The next one is related to flowchart on continuous statement. So what is continuous statement? whenever we are going with looping statements, the loop body will go with the expression condition. If it is true, then what happens? It will be continuously moving on to the loop body until the condition is false. Soon after condition is false, the remaining part of loop of the body executes. It means whenever we are going with the condition in looping, if the condition is true, then continue statement is identified within the block of the statements. Then it will go again to the body of the loop with the condition, so that if the condition is true, then automatically it will go with continue. So it will do this process until number of iterations. When the condition is failed, then automatically the compiler takes the instructions that are represented outside the body of the loop. So that is here in this flowchart represented as remaining part of loop body. Now we'll be going with differences between break and continue statement. In break statement, we'll be using break as keyword to identify that we are representing break statement in number of statements that are defined within the block. And when we are comparing with continue statement, the keyword here used is continue. The next statement related to break and continue difference is the termination of the loop takes place with the help of break statement, whereas we'll be iterating inside the loop whenever we are going with continue statement. So the continue statement will go with the next iteration whenever it is defined within the block of statements in the loop. The next difference is related to switch case and looping statements, where we'll be mostly using break statement, whereas continue statement is used in looping statements only. We'll not be using switch case statement, continue statement, that you need to remember. Whenever we want to use any statement related to switch case, then only break statement is used. Continue statement is only used in looping. When compared with continue statement, break statement can be used in switch case as well as in looping statements. And the next difference is related to break and continue. The control transferring, how it transfers the control by the compiler within the program when we are using break, and also how the transfer takes place using continue statement. So using continue statement, we'll be going with controls in the loop. So here the difference is in break statement, control transfers outside the loop, and in continue statements, control remains in the same loop. So whenever we are going with the difference between break and continue, we are going with the same difference of transfer. So control transfers outside the loop in break statement, whereas control remains in the same loop in continue statement. So this is with difference between break and continue statement. We can recollect whatever the topics we have discussed in this video with the help of flowchart. Flowchart on break statement represents condition related loop, where if the condition is true, then loop of the code block executes. Whenever the break statement is identified, automatically the break statement will terminate the block of the loop and continue with the statements that are defined outside the loop block. Whenever we are going with flowchart on continuous statement, what happens? The loop body will execute whenever the condition is true. Then continuous statement will work until number of iterations. If the condition is false, automatically what happens? Remaining part of the loop body will be executed. So in this way we need to go with break and continue statements in loops. So only in loops We are discussing about continue and break statement in this video. We can go with number of statements in general with the help of number of programs other than looping statements also. But you need to remember that break statement is used whenever we want to skip rest of the code that is being represented with number of statements so that iterations can be ignored. Whereas continue statement is used inside a loop whenever we want to continue with the rest of the statements that are going to be iterated in order to process the loop, or in order to process the remaining statements defined in set of statements when we are not using looping statements. So here the basic difference you need to remember for break and continue. With the help of flowchart, you got the difference between break and continue statement. In break statement, we'll be using break keyword, and in continue statement, we are going with continue as keyword. And termination of the loop takes place only with break statement. If we want to iterate number of statements, then we'll be going with continue statement, and break statement will be using only in switch case and looping statement, whereas continue statement is used only in looping. And lastly, the control transfers outside the loop whenever break statement is used. The controls remains in the same loop whenever continue statement is used. This is with basic content related to break and continue. In C programming, we'll be going with number of iterations, number of looping statements, so that we can easily identify the difference between them. As per the necessity of our programming, we'll be going with either break or continue. As per the context, we need to implement break and continue statement. So I hope this particular video helped you to understand the break and continue statement with its flowcharts, and also the differences between break and continue statement. Thank you, one and all.